A very good afternoon. It is 1 p.m. here in Kenya's capital, Nairobi, and you are just in time for The Ambassador, where we debunk global diplomacy and geopolitics. I am your Ambassador, Susan Nganga. On to our first story of the day. In Tanzania, Tanzania's President Samia Suluhu has defended the recent deportation of some high-profile Kenyan nationals, accusing unnamed foreign activists of attempting to destabilize the country's internal affairs. She pointed to a rising trend of foreign voices using digital platforms to comment on Tanzania's affairs, asserting that while freedom of expression is global, Tanzania's internal stability is not up to negotiations. Davis Karani has more on that report in Tanzania.
Tusiwe shamba la bibi kwamba kila mtu anaweza kuja akasema nalo litaka, lipo Tanzania halipo, watu wakajisemea tu.
Tanzanian President Dr. Samia Suluhu has warned foreign activists from interfering with the affairs of her country and observed the policy of non-interference, which according to her, the Kenyan activists failed to observe and internalize.
Tumeanza kuona mtiririko au mwenendo wa wanaharakati ndani ya region yetu hii kuanza kuvamia na kuingilia mambo yetu huku. Sasa kama kwao wameshadhibitiwa, wasije kutuharibia huku. Tusitowe nafasi. Walishaharibu kwao, walishavuruga kwao.
Suluhu stated that the only country that has not been infiltrated by activists who, according to her, inside the public, is Tanzania, and has urged all security apparatus to remain vigilant and ensure that no one will interfere with the affairs of their nation.
Walishaharibu kwao, walishavuruga kwao. Nchi iliyobaki haijaharibika. Watu wako na usalama na amani na utulivu ni hapa kwetu. Kuna majaribio kadhaa. Niwaombe sana vyombo vya ulinzi na usalama na nyinyi wasimamizi wa sera zetu nje kutoa nafasi kwa watovu wa adabu wa nchi nyingine kuja kutovuka hapa kwetu. Hapana. Nimeona klipu kadhaa za kunisema niko bias na nini. Nalofanya ni kulinda nchi yangu na ndio wajibu niliopewa.
Tanzania as a country has adopted more respective attitudes while making all sort of interventions to other countries, while the focus in general has always been helping the particular countries to settle their problems and not being biased or just joining activism as Kenyans have recently tried to do. And the act of banning Kenyan activists from entering into Tanzania as a nation complicates things further on how the relationship between the border nations will be.
We got there at 2:30 a.m. and that's when we were detained. From 2:30 a.m. to 3 p.m. We were not told why we were detained. Walikuwa wanasema kuna changamoto, but they didn't say exactly why.
Tunataka kuiambia serikali ya Tanzania wamwachilie huyu mwenzetu Boniface Mwangi haraka iwezekanavyo.
Hatutatoa nafasi kwa kiumbe yoyote kuja kutuvurugia hapa. Awe yupo ndani au anatoka nje. Hatutatoa hiyo nafasi.
Davis Karani for GBS Ambassador, Tanzania.
Very strong statements from our Badam president. Now we move on to the United States, where United States President Donald Trump has said after his call to President Zelensky, Putin that is, that Russia and Ukraine will immediately start negotiations for a ceasefire. But the Kremlin say the process will take time, and the United States president indicated he was not ready to join Europe with fresh sanctions to pressure Moscow. In a social media post, Trump said he relayed the plan to Ukraine's President Zelensky, as well as the leaders of the European Union, France, Italy, Germany, and Finland, in a group call following his section with the Russian leader. Here's more from our reporter, Paul Mathenge Maina.
We just spent 2.5 hours talking to Vladimir Putin, and I think some progress has been made.
U.S. President Donald Trump on Monday said Russia and Ukraine will immediately start negotiations toward a ceasefire and an end to their 3-year-old war. after holding a call with Russian President Vladimir Putin.
Hopefully we did something. We also spoke to the heads of most of the European nations, and we're trying to get that whole thing wrapped up. What a shame that it ever started in the first place.
After the call with Trump, Putin said the effort to end the war were generally on the right track.
The US president has expressed his position on the ceasefire, and I, for my part, also noted that Russia also favors a peaceful settlement of the Ukrainian crisis. We should determine the most effective ways to move towards peace. We agreed with the US president that Russia will suggest and is ready to work with the Ukrainian side on a memorandum on a possible future peace treaty, which defines several issues such as the principles of settlement, the term of a possible peace agreement, and so on, including a possible ceasefire for a certain time if the appropriate agreements are reached.
Ukraine President Volodymyr Zelensky spoke to Trump one-on-one before the Putin call and then again afterwards in a conversation with other European leaders. He said that he hoped a high-level meeting with Russia, the US and other nations could happen as soon as possible.
We are considering a meeting of all teams again. We would like it to be at a high level. American, Ukraine, Russia, Europe countries, and Great Britain. Such a meeting could take place in Turkey, the Vatican, or Switzerland.
Ukraine has said it is ready for a ceasefire now, while Russia has said conditions must be met first. Direct talks last week between Moscow and Kyiv had failed to achieve a truce.
Look, I'd say we're more than open to walking away. Look, I think one open question is Vladimir Putin serious about negotiating peace, right? He has made some concessions. He has taken some serious steps in these conversations, but we feel like, we're at a point where we're hitting an impasse, and that's why the president is talking to him on the phone. I think, honestly, that President Putin, he doesn't quite know how to get out of the war.
Trump, who has promised to bring a swift end to Europe's deadliest war since World War II, has repeatedly called for a ceasefire. Putin, whose forces control a 14th of Ukraine and are advancing, has stood firm on his conditions for ending the war, despite public and private pressure from Trump and repeated warnings from European powers. Reporting for GBS News, I'm Paul M. Minor.
A stellar report from Paul M. Minor. And now, the United States of America Supreme Court has allowed the Trump administration to move forward with ending temporary protected status for approximately 350,000 Venezuelans living in the U.S. This decision, issued in a brief and unsigned order on May 19, lifts a lower court's block on the administration's plan to terminate deportation, protections, and work permits for Venezuelans TPS holders. TPS is a humanitarian program that allows nationals from countries deemed unsafe due to conflict, natural disaster, or other emergencies to live and work legally in the United States. The Biden administration had previously extended these protections for Venezuelans until October 2026, but the Trump administration sought to end them early, setting an expiration date of April 7, 2025. The Supreme Court's order does not provide a detailed explanation and does not specify when deportation might begin, leaving some ambiguity about the immediate impact. However, the ruling means Venezuelans TPS holders are now at risk of losing their legal status and work authorization and could face deportation while legal challenges continue in lower courts. Immigration advocates have described this as the largest single action in modern U.S. history to strip a group of non-citizens of their immigration status, warning of significant humanitarian and economic consequences. Justice Ketanji Brown noted her dissent, but the majority allowed the administration's request to proceed. We'll bring you that update as it develops. Now we're going for a very fast break. We'll be right back with even more.
Hello, my name is Nyabio. I'm from Mahanim. Call this school a good school because the second my mom saw it, she saw it was Christian-based. And when I see Christian-based, that's what the character my mother wants from me. And I like the sports that we play for PE. Like sometimes we play table tennis, we can play football, we match, and on Fridays we have games. And we verse the teachers in football. And this is why I think the school is the best school your children can go to.
What is always before you but can't be seen?
Kudiscover talent.
Kudiscover. Ulijuangaje like unaweza imba, like yeah.
Kini Trace Jumi Kipchoge kwa ngoma na mfala wananidis na wanabonga kwa ngoma, mafanjo wananipenda ndo nazidi kwa roga, wenye walenjaribu manze walishachoka na nikozabe meditation naendelesha generation niliofanya
Wewe at 1 year old ulikuwa unafanya nini? You're feeling the vibe. Ulitoa a few days ago, unaweza taka utuambie like ulikuwa unafikiria nini when you came up with the lyrics? Yeah.
So I'm doing my thing. Don't try and stop me when I'm doing my thing. I'm trying to boss, let me do my thing. And if you're trying to win, you can be on my team. Yeah, so I'm doing my thing. Don't try and stop me when I'm doing my thing. I'm trying to boss, let me do my thing.
You feel like you're young at heart, I'm an old soul. If you could only listen to one singer or band for the rest of your life, who will you choose?
Hello, kids. Did you know a year has 31,557,600 seconds? Why do you think so? Exactly. There are 60 seconds in a minute, 60 minutes in an hour, 24 hours in a day, and 365 and 25 days in a year. We count the extra 0.25 because of leap years. When you multiply all these numbers together, you get a huge number of seconds. That's why a year feels long, but time still flies when you are having fun.
Everywhere, GBS. Welcome back to the bulletin. Now we turn our focus to France, where a major case tied to one of the 20th century's worst atrocities has taken a new turn. In France, judicial authorities have officially dropped their investigations into Agathe, the widow of Rwanda's former president, over her alleged role in the 1994 genocide. As prosecutors push back with appeals, the decision is already stirring fresh debate over justice, accountability, and France's historic ties to Rwandan conflict. Here's more on that report.
French judicial authorities have ended their long-running investigations into Agathe Habyarimana, the widow of Rwanda's former president Juvenal Habyarimana. Accused of complicity in the 1994 genocide that claimed around 800,000 lives, Agathe has been under legal scrutiny in France since 2008. Despite years of allegations and her suspected ties to the infamous Akazu, the inner circle of Hutu power believed to have planned the genocide, which she has consistently denied. Now 82, Agathe Habyarimana has lived in France without legal status since her evacuation from Rwanda during the genocide. France has repeatedly refused Rwanda's extradition requests, citing legal and humanitarian concerns. Although prosecutors sought to revive the case with fresh hearings as recent as 2022, the investigating judge declared the inquiry closed. The decision marks a controversial chapter in the pursuit of justice for one of the 20th century's darkest atrocities. Elvin Muyodi, GPS News.
A nice development indeed. Now, we shift the focus to Asia, where Taiwan is happy to have exchanges and cooperation with China as long as there is reciprocal dignity, using exchanges to replace hemming in dialogue to replace confrontation. Taiwan loves peace. Taiwan society believes in the goodness of people. I too am committed to peace, because peace is priceless and war has no winners. But when it comes to seeking peace, we cannot have dreams nor illusions. We will continue to strengthen our nation defense capabilities, whether it is through foreign military procurement, our building resilience in our national defense. Secondly, we will continue to strengthen our economic development, grow in Taiwan, and sell our products to the world. We won't put all our eggs in one basket. End of quotes.
Taiwan is happy to have exchanges and cooperation with China as long as there is reciprocal dignity, using exchanges to replace hemming in, dialogue to replace confrontation. Taiwan loves peace. Taiwan society believes in the goodness of people. I too am committed to peace, because peace is priceless and war has no winners. But when it comes to seeking peace, we cannot have dreams nor illusions. We will continue to strengthen our nation defense capabilities, whether it is through foreign military procurement. Secondly, we will continue to strengthen our economic development, grow in Taiwan, and sell our products to the world. We won't put all our eggs in one basket.
Very bold statements there. Now we move on to the sports news, where Manchester United have reportedly shifted focus to a Premier League striker as they aim to bolster their squad for next season. After agreeing a deal with the Wolves forward Cunha, United have a deal in place for him, who is set to leave Premier League rivals Wolves for the Red Devils at the end of the season, having been conceived by Ruben Project with personal terms, agreed although the two clubs are yet to reach an agreement. However, that is not expected to be a problem, as the Red Devils need to activate his €62.5 million release clause, with only the payment formula set to take time to agree. Now on to the next story. In a major step towards strengthening ties between Africa and Europe, the Confederation of the African Football has signed a landmark partnership with the European Commission. The agreement will see European Union sponsor several major tournaments, including the Africa Cup of Nations and a schools football championship set to reach tens of thousands of young players across the continent. Here's more on that story.
The Confederation of African Football (CAF) and the European Commission have joined forces in a major new partnership to boost football development across Africa. The European Union will sponsor the African Schools Football Championship, as well as the 2025 and the 2027 Africa Cup of Nations and this year's women's equivalent. The Women's Africa Cup of Nations will take place in July this year in Morocco, followed by the men's event in December. The agreement was signed by European Commissioner for International Partnerships Joseph Sikela and CAF President Patrice Motsepe in Cairo, Egypt. This new agreement is part of an initiative dubbed the Global Gateway Africa-Europe Investment Package. Through this initiative, the European Union has pledged to invest at least €150 billion in Africa by 2027. Other areas of European investment in Africa include energy transition and healthcare. The signature of this partnership also takes place as the two continents celebrate the 25th anniversary of the first European-African Union Summit that took place in Cairo in 2000. Elvin Muyodi, GBS News.
The stellar report from Elvis Moyodi. And that's all for today here at The Ambassador. Thank you for joining us as we uncover the latest development. We'll continue to bring you updates on these stories and more as they unfold. Remember, this is The Ambassador, where we debunk global diplomacy and geopolitics. I have been your Ambassador, Susan Nganga. Have a good afternoon.
Everywhere, GBS.